Hello, happy Wednesday. Thank you for joining me here. We are going to do some foundation paper piecing tonight for the Splendid Sampler 2. So thank you guys for joining me. My name is Alyssa Thomas from Penguin and Fish, where we make cute embroidery kits for the beginning crafter. And I am here every weeknight on Facebook Live, and we do this live show every weeknight at 8:30 p.m. Central Time. That's 9:30 Eastern and 6:30 Pacific. And it's about an hour long, and I work on projects from beginning to end, so you can be part of the whole process along the way. Replays are over on YouTube at Penguin and Fish Movies. So I hope you follow me here on Facebook and subscribe over on YouTube. And all right, you guys, let's get going. We are working on the Adventure Abounds block from the Splendid Sampler 2. So there it is. It looks all fancy and intricate with that little tree, fancy triangles. It is done with foundation paper piecing. And we've prepped our pieces yesterday, so we got all of them color coded, so I know exactly what fabric to use for each piece, and now we can actually start the sewing. I'm ready to go, you guys, so thanks again for joining me. Oh, check your emails. I sent out an email today, and there is a free little embroidery pattern in there for you guys that you can just download for free. So go check that out. All right, I'm going to flip you guys around. Let's get started tonight. All right. So here we are. We got all of our fabrics picked out yesterday, and we've also color-coded all of our pieces. So there are quite a few. Let's just kind of put them in order. Once you have them divided up, you don't really have to do them in any certain order. You can do however you want, but I think we'll start with A. So if you take a look, each one of these pieces, this is what we cut out yesterday. So I made a photocopy of it, and then we colored in the pieces, the colors that we wanted it to be, and used the book. So here's the Splendid Sampler 2. We used this guy here as a reference. So that's what we used to color it in. Oh, I'm so happy that you guys like it. The little squirrel. If any of you guys stitch up the squirrel, be sure to share in the Penguin and Fish Crafters group. I really want to see. All right, so yesterday we colored in all our pieces. These have little stars because we have a star fabric that this heart is going to be made out of. So that's my star fabric reference. So you can see that each one of these pieces has letters and numbers on them. So, and you'll notice that all of them have the same, like within a piece, have the same letter. And then it starts at number 1, and then you can see it counts up to however many pieces there are. So this one goes up to 7. So it's A1 through A7 on this piece. Then this one, for example, this is the F segment. So each one of these has the letter F on, and then again, it counts 1 through, this one is 8. So this has 8 pieces. So that's the first thing to notice, is that there's different lettered sections. So I'm going to just start on the A section. You can probably start on whatever section you want. But within the piece, we will go in the exact order. So we will start at A1, then go to A2 to A3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So those you have to do in order. The numbers you have to do in order. You can kind of decide if you want to do these letters in order. But some paper piecing might require you to do the letters in order, so I would just do them in order anyway. So I'm going to start at letter A, and we are going to go through the process here. So A is the part with the cute little heart on. Bonnie, I'm not sure if there are any cases in Minneapolis yet, but they are in St. Paul, and I know that they're shutting down a few buildings. All right, maybe not St. Paul, but Ramsey County, which I think is where St. Paul is. So, yeah, I don't know, not fun. I mean, not to mention that there's tons of flu and all that, you know, around too, but yeah, I don't know. I don't want to get any sort of sick. All right, you guys. So the parts that aren't colored on here, for my block, it represents white. So I'm going to do all this in white. So I have this white fabric here. That's going to pose a tiny hair of difficulty for me because you really want to know in foundation paper piecing what the front of your fabric is, like the right side and the wrong side. That's going to become important as we go along here. And one thing you should know about each one of these pieces, the part with all the lines and the color, that actually represents the wrong side of the fabric. So that's a good way to know, like so whenever we're sewing, we're always going to want the wrong side of the fabric face up, because when we flip this around, then that is going to be the right side of the fabric, or the nice patterned side of the fabric. So we always have to remember that everything here is actually in reverse, because when we flip it, then it'll be right side. So like, for example, these triangles, they're not going to end up going in this direction. They will go in the opposite direction. So this will be the wrong side of all these fabrics. All right. One other thing that might come in handy is having an extra photocopy around, because you can actually use some of these pieces to help you cut out pieces a little bit later. So we can go over that as well. That might make it a little easier for you guys. But I just kind of love working in giant blobs. So instead of having like my perfectly cut pieces, I'm going to just start with blobs. And what I mean by that is ultimately we're going to need a piece of fabric that covers each one of these little pieces, but an extra 1/4 of an inch. But I always go way bigger. I always do a big old blob around that it's at least a 1/4 of an inch plus a little bit extra. That way, if I shimmy it a little bit, I'm still going to have that 1/4 inch. So that's kind of how I like working. So you'll see me just call it blobs, and that's kind of how I deal with it. So I'm going to cut the first piece. So we're going to start with this A1 piece, and that is just this little kind of square or, you know, diamond shape. So I need a piece of fabric that's as big as this A1 piece plus that generous 1/4 inch seam allowance around it. All right, so first thing you notice is the A1 is white, so I'm going to use my white fabric. Okay, the second thing you want to do is make sure the right side of the fabric is down. So again, I'm using white fabric, but if I was doing, you know, if I had like this star fabric or something, first I would want the, well, this looks pretty much the same, but I would want the right side of the fabric down. So just keep that in mind if you're getting started on this and you're using a patterned fabric for this background. Right side is down. Okay, and now I'm going to just place this A1 piece kind of on my fabric so I can see just by like peeking that I got a good 1/4 inch, and then I'm going to just cut the other two sides to get that 1/4 inch. So about right here, it's just kind of like a big old square. You know, this is where cutting, get the paper scissors out, this is where cutting out the actual piece from a separate piece of paper can come in handy, a separate copy. So I'll show you the difference there. I kind of find this as a little tedious extra step, but it is a way to get your shapes down, especially some of these oddball shapes, like this is some weird trapezoid. That might be a whole lot easier with that extra template piece. But here we go. So this basically represents our A1 piece. And let's just double check. Yep, it is definitely, I definitely have my generous 1/4 inch seam allowance. So that's really all we're looking for, is a generous 1/4 inch seam allowance. All right. So the first thing we do with the A1 piece, so the one pieces on all of these, so like A1, B1, D1, they are all treated the same. And they're treated differently than all the other numbers. All the other numbers act the same as each other, but the one piece acts a little bit different, and it's because we haven't sewn it to anything yet. So for that piece, I'm actually going to dab with a little bit of glue. I'm going to actually just put it on the back of that A1 piece here. And that's just temporary. And then I'm going to place that piece so that I got that generous 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around. And we're going to just glue that down. All right. So technically, we are done with the A1 piece. We actually don't have to do anything else. That piece of fabric is attached. Remember, the wrong side of the fabric was up, so now if we turn it around, this is actually the good or the right side of the fabric. Again, with mine, it's actually just white, so it doesn't matter. All right, so I'm going to flip that back around. We can actually move on now. The A1 piece is completely done. That one's just, the one piece is always silly on all these. That's all there is to it, is cut a big old piece of fabric and glue it down. All right, now from here on out, all these other numbers are going to be treated exactly the same. So here's the process. So right now we are on A2. So we have moved on from A1, that is in the past. We are now thinking about A2. So this, first of all, we are on a star fabric now, so let's get that out. And again, we need a piece of fabric that's as big as this A2 piece plus that generous 1/4 inch seam allowance. And again, it might be helpful. Maybe for this A block, I'll use the templates for the entire time, but maybe the other ones, maybe I'll just do it without the template. Then we can see kind of both ways of doing it. And these don't have to be perfect, because remember, I'm just cutting a big blob that's bigger than this. So here's an A2 piece. I could have used that A1 piece because they're the same, but I decided to cut that one out too. So, all right, wrong side of the fabric is down. And we could actually fussy cut this too. Like, I could actually place this exactly on like one of these big stars or something. But I don't think I'm going to bother with all that. But you could. And actually, they did do that they did fussy cut it in the actual pattern. So, oops, I hit the camera there. So here, they fussy cut the word love, and they fussy cut the word listen out of there. And all that means is, fussy cut just means that they on purpose decided to cut out a shape right from the middle of their fabric somewhere. They were being really fussy about where they cut out the fabric, just so they could get whatever fun shape they wanted. So we could fussy cut. We could pick a little star in here and put it right in the middle. But I don't think there's anything too grand about this that I need to do that. But you could. So, you could place your fabric and cut. But I'm just going to go what's closest to the edge here. So maybe I will kind of err on the side of getting one of those little guys in there. So all I'm looking for now is that generous 1/4 inch seam allowance. And you can use a rotary cutter. I just do all this with my scissors because you're just rough cutting this. We're going to end up with a perfect 1/4 inch seam allowances. So don't worry. Right now, you can just deal with these blobbity blob cuts. That's what I kind of love about this. All right. So one thing to know, though, the piece that we are going to be putting next to the piece before, we're going to want a nice straight edge of that. So I'm going to actually cut, and we're going to get it closer to the 1/4 inch. I'm going to cut a nice little edge right there. All right, so I'm going to put this to the side for a moment, and we are going to go back to here. So I need to put a little fold in here. So here's what I'm going to do. I want to put a fold right on the line. I want to put a fold in between the piece that we're on now and whatever happened before. that is all we are concerned with. So right now that is A1. So I'm going to cover up what happened before, which is A1. It's this line right here, because this is the only line in between A2 and A1. So that's the line I'm concerned about. And I'm going to ignore everything that is above the number I'm working on. So I'm going to put my postcard right along that line. This is that nice postcard where I got a straight edge there. And I'm going to flip this edge over, and I'm going to fold it along the entire edge there. And that reveals my raw edge of the fabric there. All right, so next up, this is the time where I'm going to cut that perfect 1/4 of an inch. And I can do that with just a normal ruler here. And I can put that 1/4 inch right on the edge of my folded line there, and we could just trim it right off. But I'm going to show you how to do it with the add a 1/4 ruler here. So again, this add a 1/4 ruler had this 1/4 inch bump right here. And I'm going to butt that right up against this edge here. So I could do this with my eyes closed. That is what is so awesome about this add a 1/4 ruler. Just bump it right up against there, and now I got my perfect 1/4 inch. You might just think, oh, that's so silly. I have a ruler. I can measure a 1/4 of an inch. But oh my God, you are going to love, love, love this if you do a bunch of foundation paper piecing, which we will in this book here. So bump that right up on there. And now we can cut. And now we have our perfect 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, so we can fold this back now. Okay, so there you can see, right along that fold, that's kind of where we'll be sewing, but we got that perfect 1/4 inch seam allowance. All right, so back to our piece here. This is our A2 piece. And remember, we cut that one edge, the edge that's going to match up with the piece that came before, that A1. We cut that to about 1/4 of an inch, and we're going to actually match that edge up with now that seam that we cut perfectly. So there we are. We're just matching it together. So let's do that again. So this seam is going to match up with this seam. So, and you're going to put the right sides together now. So just right like that. We can remove that, and we'll do a little test of this as well. All right, so I'm matching up those edges. And just to test it, I'm going to pretend sew. So I'm going to flip this around, and I'm going to take a pin. Ultimately, we want to sew. We're going to sew that same line in between the A1 piece and our current piece, the A2 piece. So that is just this. That is only this line here. So I want to test to make sure that I have my piece in the right spot, and I'm going to do that by pretend sewing. So I'm just going to stick a pin right along that line. There we go. And now I'm going to pretend to press. So I'm going to flip this over, and I'm going to pretend press this open. There you go. Now I have the right side of the fabric. This is the wrong side. Now the right side is revealed. Let's pretend to press. I'm just finger pressing that. And now, if the test worked, if we don't have to move our fabric at all, then my A2 piece should be completely covered on this side, plus our big, generous seam allowance. And it looks like we got it there. So I can just flip up, yep, generous seam allowance, generous seam allowance, generous seam allowance. So we're totally fine. So it's easy. That's easy to do when you have perfectly nice squares. But when it gets to these weird trapezoid things, and we'll see that later, it might not be so easy to get this perfect on your first time. You may find that, oh, I need to shift this guy up a little bit or down a little bit. Triangles have a tricky way of you get like the proportions weird, and you know, thinking about them when they flip and stuff. So they get a little weird, especially when it gets to trapezoids and all that. Squares, pretty easy. I pretty much know that we're gonna have our seam allowance there. All right, so I removed my pin. You probably don't need to do that, but with these little pieces, I find I don't need the pin in there. But all right, so we're ready to sew. I'm gonna sew from this point here to that point there. And again, to know there's lines everywhere, to know what you're working on, it's the piece that you're working on now and the line in between the piece and whatever happened before. And the only thing that happened before is the A1. So this is the only line in between those pieces. You know, this line doesn't matter, that line doesn't matter. All right, so let's get to the machine. I had quite a bear with this machine today, so I'm hoping this is still gonna work, you guys. I got the bobbin working on this old machine. Oh, but I had to sand down the pulley, the rubber pulley on the back. I'll show you that. So how this machine works is it has this motor, and all it has is this little rubber wheel that goes along, it brushes against this wheel, and that's what makes this go around. But I don't know, there's something, it's not quite right. So I took a piece of sandpaper and I sanded it down, and now it's gripping a little bit better. But we'll see how it works for us tonight here. So all right, hold on a second, guys. All right, get situated. Okay, let's get that light on too. Oop, come on there. I'm using this machine today because my other machine is still kind of acting a little funny. Let's take the shoe off. All right, so now I'm going to flip this around. And I am going to sew right on that line. So I don't have to worry about seam allowances or anything. All I'm going to do, it's like coloring in a coloring book. I'm just going to go right on that line. And I like starting right on the edge. I don't want to cross over into the next line. So I'm not going to sew way into here. If you do a stitch or two over, that's not the end of the world. But I like stopping right at the edge. And I also like stopping with a back stitch. So I'll go forward once, and then I'm going to go backwards just to kind of lock it in place, and then I'm going to go forward again. Oh, one other thing is that you want to reduce your stitch length. We want as many little holes in here as possible because then it will be easier to tear the paper off later. All right, so let's go along that line. All right, about right there. Now I'm going to go reverse again. Ooh, I can go a little bit bigger stitches than that. Playing with this new machine here. All right, and that will do. So let's lift that up. Get it out of the machine there. Oh, I think I lost. Oh, it looks like my bobbin broke a little bit. Oh no, at the top. Oh, interesting. I'm telling you guys, this machine is acting crazy, but I think we got it here. We just got it tied in a little knot here or something, but I think we're fine. So I'm going to actually snip those ends off. I always like snipping off the ends of these right away because I don't want all these little phalanges, these fuzzles everywhere. So I'm going to snip that off just right against the paper and right against the fabric there. And there, that is our first sewn piece here. So next up, let's go to the iron. So I'm gonna hop right over here. I got my ironing mat over here, and this is gonna be a matter of me moving my stuff around over and over and over again. I always tend to like put all my stuff on the next place that I need. But all right, so I have the iron heated up. I am always going to press with the ink side down. Like I don't want any of this stuff transferring to my iron, so I am always going to put that down. So you can see here is our little stitch line. That is our little, that's what we stitched right on this side. Before I press, I'm actually going to give it a little finger press because you can see we haven't sewn all the way to the edge here. We've only sewn along that line. So I'm going to flip this around and I'm going to press along that line, but I'm going to extend the fold a little bit. There we go. Now let's give it a press with the actual iron. Okay, and there we go. Our first 2 pieces are done, and now I can kind of remove that glue a little bit. We actually don't really need it anymore. So there we go. Our two pieces there. Actually, probably should have done that before I pressed, but it'll be fine. All right, we are done. We're done with the A2 piece and the A1 piece. It doesn't look like much now, but it is going to be formed with every new piece that we put on there. Our front is going to be formed more and more. So next up, let's start by trimming our seam allowance. So we are now on A3. I am moving on. So we are now on A3. I am going to fold along that line again. So I'm going to cover up with my postcard everything that happened before A3. In this case, it is now A1 and A2. So let's head over here. All right, I am going to take my postcard. Let's cover up everything that happened before and expose the piece that we're working on now. Completely ignore anything larger than this number 3. Anything larger than our current piece, we're going to pretend doesn't even exist. Now let's fold that over. And there we have both of our blobby seam allowances. Our imperfect seam allowances that we're now making perfect. Plop that add a quarter ruler on there. And trim that. Those little scrappies we can throw out. And there we go. Absolutely perfect seam allowance. So we can fold the paper back, and that piece is just perfect. So when we take all the paper off, when we're done, our seam allowances are going to be spot on. All right, let's get this piece of fabric together. It is, let's check it out. Okay, A3, it is that star fabric again. So let's get that. And why don't we get we'll cut out this next template piece too. Why not? We'll do it this way for the A section. Okay. So let's match it up with our A3 here. Okay, so the side of the A3 that's going to touch the other ones, like the one right on this fold that we just made, that's where we want our nicer 1/4 inch seam allowance, and the rest we can do kind of that big blob. All right, so do it in the same position here. And remember, the right side is down and the wrong side is up. Let's get some of this area that we already have cut over here. All right, I'm going to just use this nice straight edge that we have already. This is the edge I want to match. All the rest, I mean, like I could, if I wanted to do it here for some reason, I would just cut a nice straight edge here, but let's just go right here. That's about a 1/4 inch. The rest I want that larger blobbity blob. So I'm just going to take my scissors and cut. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be bigger than that 1/4 inch. Just in case things get shifted, you want that bigger than a 1/4 inch. So I think that will work just fine. Okay, so now that nice straight edge that's on that edge that we're gonna that was along the fold, that's what we're gonna match up to that perfect seam allowance that we just cut. So that matches up with that. So, you know, right sides should be together, and they are. Let's do our little test. So that's a nice, those edges are nice together. Let's hold those and flip, and let's pretend sew. So we're going to pretend sew along this line now. It's that line that we just folded. And let's pretend press. And you don't have to do this every time, but it's better safe than sorry. It is hard to go backwards if you've made a mistake with paper piecing. You'll have to end up tearing your piece apart and taping it together. It is hard to go backwards. So that's why I'm erring on the big old blobs, why I'm erring on like way more than the 1/4 inch seam allowance, why I'm not like pre-cutting it all perfect, and why I'm doing the testing is because it is not nice to go backwards. So, all right, that looks good. Again, we're testing to make sure that it covers our A3 piece plus a generous seam allowance all the way around, and we got it. So let's fold that back. Now we can sew along that line. I'll just leave the pin in there for now. Let's come over to the sewing machine. All right, and we are going to sew right along that line, but we're not going to go into the other shapes. So we're just sewing on the line that is between A3 and whatever came before, which is A1 and A2. So, all right, let's put this flat. Oh, the thread's still there. All right, we're fine. All right, now I'm just gonna move the pin out of my way. You'll definitely want to keep your pins here if you have larger pieces that get floppy, like this piece here. That's a pretty long line. I'll probably pin that down. But for these itty bitty pieces, those aren't moving much. Come on, guy. There we go. I'm going to remove that pin. All right, let's go backward a few stitches. Just to kind of lock that in place, and now I'm going forward again. Right on that line. All right, and I'm stopping before I get into the next piece too far. Do a little back tack and forward again. All right, that's that. Oh gosh, this kind of is breaking every single time. So something's up with this. Or maybe I'm sliding in on it. Maybe this has a sharp point underneath. I don't know. Something's goofy still with this. But anyway, we're able to sew to the end before it's breaking. Oh, so many issues with this machine today. But it's still sewing. So that's good. Get rid of that fuzzle too. Okay, so there we are. We sewed along that line there. Next up is pressing. You know, I do actually really like this machine, Tracy. It's just, I'm just still the most familiar with the Kenmore that I have from the 70s, but that's the one that's not working right now very well either. And I think, gosh, I might bring this guy to get checked in again too. I don't know. Oops, I forgot to finger press this. So let's press along the seam that we sewed and then press the edges that we didn't sew. Just extend that line. I really, really do like the machine just because I think it's just so interesting. You know, it doesn't have that belt. I just really like it. But yeah, it's a little trickier. Not so easy as the one from the 70s. All right, you guys, we are done with A3. That is completely done. We are moving on to A4 now. But look, it is shaping up. We got a heart going here. So, all right, now we just need to kind of like frame up the rest of this piece, it looks like. All right, now we're way up here. So A4. All right, let's get that good seam allowance. So we're going to cover up everything that happened before. That's A1 through 3, so we're going to cover up all that. And it looks like this line here is the one we're going to deal with, not anything that happens above. So, all right, let's start there. I could sew by hand. Oh, I've never sewn a foundation paper piecing by hand, though. But I thought about that earlier today, like, oh my God, am I going to have to sew this by hand? Oops, A4 is what we're working on now. So, oh yeah, I'm going to cover up everything that happened before A4 and expose A4. So there we are. I still have that 60s Kenmore sewing machine, which I also don't know all that well. I should get that one out again. But that one is, that one's in the basement, and I didn't want to figure that one out. So the new problem of the evening, this is the third problem of the evening with this machine, but the third problem is that top thread keeps breaking, so I don't know what that's all about. But we're able to still sew. But all right, we got that perfect 1/4 inch seam allowance. It's all framed up nice there. So let's get our A4 piece and let's cut it out of our template piece again. All right, use this A4 up here. And I'm just gonna cut out the piece. I'm not gonna cut out that extra seam allowance because we're gonna add that seam allowance anyway right now. So I don't need that extra piece of paper here. All right, there we go. So now here's where it's going to get a little tricky because I'm back to the white. So all the rest of these pieces are white, but my white doesn't have a right or wrong side of the fabric. So I have to remember that I'm putting the right side down and the wrong side is up. Because remember, this is the wrong side. When we flip, it's the right side. I don't think it's the tension, because the tension is usually super awesome on this machine, and I haven't switched the tension at all. I think it's just something about when I'm dragging the thread across the foot. I wonder if the foot, I don't know, has a sharp area. I'm not quite sure. Okay, so let's line this up the same way so we don't confuse ourselves. All right, good, I already confused myself. I was going to use this as my straight edge, or as the nice edge, but it's actually this edge right here that's the matching edge. So this edge, I want that more of a 1/4 inch nice straight edge. The rest can be my big 1/4 inch seam allowance. So this is the edge that I want right here. So I'm going to just use, again, a straight edge that already kind of exists here. This is that edge. And then we'll just trim our blob. And you could even use a rotary cutter for this, but I'm going to just use my scissors. So I got to remember this is the wrong side right now, and this is the right side underneath. All right, so generous 1/4 inch seam allowance on all these other edges. Again, I don't bother cutting perfect stuff here because I know it's going to end up perfect once we do our add a 1/4 ruler stuff. All right, so this perfect straight edge matches up with that perfect straight edge we did before. So it's kind of right in the center there. Let's do our little test. I'm just guessing. I'm just kind of guessing at this position. I don't know if it goes up there or right there, but it looks like it goes about right there. So I still like doing the test. So let's flip that. Find my pin. Here we go. Okay, let's pretend so. Once you get to bigger pieces, I would use two pins so it doesn't flop around. Oh, your grandmother, a paper piece by hand using newspapers. Ooh, I would try that sometime. All right, I'm pretend pressing. All right, I can tell already that we have our generous seam allowance on all our sides here for sure. I mean, it's bigger over here than it is here, so I could shift it up, but I don't have to because I made the blob big enough. I made my seam allowances big enough that I don't have to perfectly shift. If I cut this to exact 1/4 inches, I would be futzing and futzing and futzing with this forever to get it all perfect. But if it's bigger over here than it is on this side, but this side still has that 1/4 inch, good to go. So all right, let's flip that back, and now we can sew along that edge. There we go. Okay, so we're sewing from there to there. Back to the sewing machine, and now I need to rethread it as well. I think I have it in the machine correctly. Yeah, that all looks good. So we're fine. All right, let's rethread this quick. Okay, get that in there. Oh, this is pretty similar to that string piecing that we did with the first Aurifil block. Is just like a step up from string piecing because now we got to follow these lines. So it is pretty similar. All right, so far so good. That feels good. Okay, I don't know. Let's just do it. Okay, our pieces are good. Let's get our line going. Okay, right there along that line. I'm going to remove that pin. Okay, let's go back a little bit. Oop, and forward. And back and forward a little bit again. This machine sounds like a motorcycle. All right, now let's try and get it out again. Just maybe pull this way. So it gets a little stuck here, but that's kind of normal. There, now here's where it was breaking. I don't know why, so it seems to be fine now. All right, I was just more gentle that time, I guess. All right, let's snip our fuzzles off. Again, I like getting rid of those right away. Oh gosh, and I unthreaded it just now too because I stuck my needle in there, or my scissors in there. Oh my goodness. It's just one of those days, isn't it? Hey, but I'm getting it done still here. We're just gonna have to rethread this every stinking time. All right, there we go. There to there, we're all sewn. Let's give that a press. All right. Oh, Anna, let me know what you're looking for. I missed what you guys are talking about. Yeah, my YouTube, where all the replays are, it's on YouTube, and it's Penguin and Fish Movies, all one thing. But if you did a search for Penguin and Fish and the Splendid Sampler 1 or SS1, my videos would probably come up for that. And then if you look at the whole playlist, then you can probably dig around and find what you need to. I've organized the second Splendid Sampler a little bit better. I've organized that on YouTube by blocks. So you can just search for the block. But in the first one, I just go in order. But there we are, you guys. We got that all pressed out. So it is coming along. Look, we're shaping that heart. We're shaping it with each piece. So A4 complete. I think we're going to finish this whole block tonight, which would be awesome. So there's only 3 more. Okay, A5 is next, and that's that goofy shape. So we'll see how we do on that. Let's get our good straight edge first. So I'm going to expose the A5 and cover up everything else that happened before. So now that's this whole area. Ignore. All right, getting that postcard again. So I'm getting wise now. Instead of throwing all my stuff, except for just this one part, instead of throwing all my stuff to the next workstation, which means I have to move it every time I do it, I'm throwing it above. So I can just grab from the above, and my workstations are pretty clear. So after however many times I've paper pieced, figured that out finally. All right, let's put that postcard along that line. Flip up, bump on that add a quarter ruler, and trim. So all those seam allowances we're trimming all at once. They're all perfect. There we go. All right, we can fold that back, put it above me, there we go. And we got our nice perfect cut going all the way across there. All right, so A5, let's continue with our little pattern piece. I'm going to cut out that A5. Again, I'm not doing this perfect. All I need is, the general shape here. I'm just cutting a blob from this, right? Okay, so A5 is our white fabric still. So let's plop that down here. Okay, I'm going to pretend that this is the right side, this is the wrong side. All right, let's match this up again. All right, right here. So this is the line that I want, that straight edge, that nice 1/4 inch. So let's go along here. It's looking pretty good. I can always cut this if it's not perfect. All right, let's get our blob going around the outside here. Again, bigger than a 1/4 inch. There we go. Looking pretty good. Move that out of the way. I find this so freeing. I find it so freeing that I don't have to cut perfect edges. I can just leisurely cut with my scissors. I do actually find, even though there's a lot of steps, I find this a really freeing, think-free process once you get going on it. It really gets calming and easy without having to deal with that ruler all the time. All right, we are matching that nice edge with that edge that we cut right there. Okay, right sides are together. I'm just kind of plopping this on here. However, I suspect I'm going to be a hair, like if I just plop this on, this is kind of what we've been doing, but let's do the test. Let's pretend that, well, let's not pretend. I'm going to do this. Let's say that this is where I think this piece should go. So, all right, this is kind of how we've laid down all of our other pieces, but I suspect we may need to move this, and it's because, let's get another pin in here. It's because this piece looks like it's kind of shifted up compared to all these other pieces. Let's just peek. Ooh, this pin, I'm not sure is working all that well. All right, there we go. Let's pretend press. All right, flip that around. All right, so I want that generous seam allowance all the way around, and it looks like I still have it because we cut that big, but look, there's a lot, we have a lot of edge over here, we have plenty of edge here, and actually we have enough edge up here as well, even though this is much smaller. But remember, this seam allowance is part of the seam allowance that we can count. So it's actually this much extra. So I actually don't have to move this. However, if I wanted to even it out a little bit more, like get more up here, I could just shift it all this way. So take the pins out and then shift my entire piece up. But actually, I think we're fine still, so I'm going to just keep going. So I folded this back. Let's sew. All right, there's one other thing about this sewing that'll be a little bit different. Let's thread my needle again here, since I've pulled that out every time. Sorry, it's shaking quite a bit there. Not fun to keep threading a needle. All right. Oh, goodness. All right, so the one extra thing that we have that's different here is that our piece, our line that we're going to sew, goes into a seam allowance, an edge seam allowance here, or it goes into the edge of the piece, basically. On this side, it stops. We have that stopping point line there again, where it runs into another piece. But on this side, it just runs off the edge. So we are going to actually extend that line, and I'm going to sew off of the edge here. So I'm kind of going by the fold. I'm going to start up a little bit higher here. All right, let's get the little reverse going. All right, and now I'm going to sew through that seam allowance area, and then now I'm on my line here. There we go. And on this side, I'm stopping again when I hit another piece. So one more, I think, and let's go backwards. And we'll go forward a couple more stitches, and I think we're fine. Here I'm trying to get it not to break again. Huh. It's fine now, I don't know. Let's snip that end up here. Snip the undersides. Don't want to get those all tangled in my way. And there we go. So it's stopped at that piece, and then it goes off the edge on this side when it hits the edge. So we're good. Let's press that. All right, and again, let's finger press that over. press. Ooh, our heart is forming. Cute, 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 cute. All right, next up, we have a 6 right here. All right, so let's cover up everything that happened before and expose that A6 piece. Okey-doke. We're extending it all the way up. Exposing all our little seam allowances. All right. Put that up there. All right, and there's our little, oh gosh, it looks like I didn't really do that fold all that well. You know what, I'm gonna redo that fold. Doesn't look like I'm right on that line, does it? So I think it's because I've sewn into this shape a little bit. You're gonna have to pull those threads, pull your paper away from those threads a bit to get a better fold. There we go. Getting picky here, I guess. Now let's retrim that. Just that tiny little extra edge. There we go. That makes me happier. There we go. That's a hair better, I guess. All right, let's get that template piece. This actually is quite a bit easier by using these template pieces, so I do kind of recommend doing this. Let's cut this A7 piece out right away too. So that's why it's nice having this extra template sheet hanging around. I knew there was some reason I printed another one. There we go. Okay, let's see the side that matches up. I just kind of go by the number to, like, so it's not upside down, because this one could go, you know, either way, but I want that number up and in the same position. So, all right, here is the edge that matches up with everything that came before. So this is that edge that we're going to get that little 1/4 inch, and then the rest we're going to get that blob. So as I move this around and stuff, I know it's this edge here. All right, fabric with the right side down again. Again, in my case, doesn't really matter because it's white. Okay, so it's this edge here. Let's lay that against my nice straight edge there. And let's blob out around here. Remember all the way to the corner too. That needs to be the 1/4 inch too. Like I don't want to accidentally cut this off here. Let's get that blob going around that edge. All right. So this is our edge, our nice straight edge there. Let's match that up. It looks like I can kind of see through my fabric here. Like here's that line, so I just want to make sure I have that good 1/4 inch seam allowance there, and we should actually be good to go. I think I'm not even going to test it. Sometimes I like just kind of like holding the points here and estimating. All right, I should have a generous 1/4 inch seam allowance along that side, and I'm holding that point right there on the edge, and I should have a generous seam allowance that way too. So I'm going to just say that we are good to go here. Sometimes I'm getting a little daring now, maybe because it's a little bit later, but I don't always like to do that. I do like doing our little measuring, our method with our test sewing with the pins. All right. Let's go backwards a bit and forward. And now again, we're going into the seam here, so I'm going to extend past. I'm not hitting any more blocks, so I'm going to actually extend past there a little bit, and then we'll do a little back step again. and forward, and there, that piece is done. Cute, we're getting there. Get these puzzles gone. And let's press. And then we have one more to do, and then we are completely done with this A block. So I've been kind of taking it a little slow here tonight. Not too slow. I mean, we're still cruising. We're still getting this block done. But over the next few nights, I'm going to try and really get through these other blocks, I think. Just because there are a lot of, or these other sections, there are a lot of other sections all the way through F. Cute! Look at how blobby it looks down here, though. All right, let's do this A7 piece. We're covering up everything now, everything that happened before. And we'll trim this yet tonight, too, just because I think it makes it look so good when you trim the edge. All the blob goes away. All right, covering this up. I'm not going to take the paper off yet, though. I'm not going to do that till the entire piece is sewn together. So that I won't be doing tonight. All right, I'm going to pull away the little fabric, the seams that went over a little bit. All right, let's trim that. Okay, and one more piece to go. One more piece of white. Oh, look at that nice edge. I always like seeing that. All right, it is this A7 piece, and it's this big, long, the hypotenuse there that we're getting at that straight edge, or that closer to a true 1/4 of an inch, whereas the rest will cut that blob. So let me show you, if you don't have a good straight edge beforehand, like if I wanted to put this here, like if I had a cool pattern on the other side that I wanted to fussy cut, and I wanted to put this piece here, I would just trim a nice straight edge first. So let's just do that. There. Now I can use this as my nice straight edge. And then I can cut my blob around that. All right, that'll do it. I don't worry about if it's not, perfectly flat or ironed. You could iron your fabric beforehand, but we iron it at the end, as we're working. So unless this is so annoying, like I can't deal with that fold, like it's distorting my shape as I go, then maybe I would press this, but I'm not going to worry about it. All right, match those straight edges. Okay, again, let's pick the corner points. Do we have our generous 1/4 inch seam allowance? I think we do. Oh gosh, I think this one I normally would do the pin technique. So let's just do it. Just to make sure that these are lined up correctly. So and I'm going to want these probably pinned anyway because this is kind of a bigger floppy piece. I don't want it moving around while I sew. So let's just pin it right now. All right, let's do our test. Okay, I can see that it's extending over our edges, so I know this is going to be good. Yep, we got our generous seam allowance. Generous seam allowance at the end here. Fine, we are perfect. Great. All right, let's sew along that edge. So now I have two lines that go to the edge. So I'm going to extend it here, and I'm going to extend it here. And then that will be done with the first A piece. I will trim it, though, yet tonight. Oh, it's going to look so good. Get our little heart done. Right here, I need to make sure that I'm flat here. Right, extending it into that edge. Reverse going. Takes me a little while to go forward and back on this machine here. Ooh, stabbed myself. Had to happen. I love this. You can just stitch on a line. It's so brain easing. I don't have to think about a seam allowance, nothing. Don't have to use like real rulers. I just love foundation paper piecing just because I don't have to do any of that measuring, thinking stuff. Once you get the whole idea of, especially cutting out those pieces, those template pieces to help out, it's so easy to get the shapes that you need. Don't have to think at all about anything else. So this is, it looks like it was tearing my thread again. So let me just pull on this. No, something is trying to rip the thread as I do this. So, something I'm gonna have to keep my eye on with this machine here. Not quite sure what's doing that. I'm gonna have to run some experiments. All right, let's finger press this over. Look at that cute heart. There it is. Cute, 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 cute. And look, you can see all my seam allowances. Just because I've done this with white, you can kind of see my seam allowances through. But look, every single one of them is gonna be a perfect 1/4" seam allowance. So if anyone saw this that didn't know about foundation paper piecing, it'd be like, oh my gosh, how did you cut those tiny pieces and get them all perfect and the perfect seam allowances? I don't understand. It's the magic of paper piecing. All right, one last bit to do with this section, and then we'll call it a night. I'm going to actually get my normal ruler out here. I am going to trim this edge so it's not our crazy blob land anymore. So now this is what I was talking about yesterday and why I didn't really cut this outside edge. I didn't really care about how blobby I cut this. Like I didn't perfectly cut along that dotted line. It's because that I am going to use this inner line as my perfection line. So I'm going to actually do a 1/4" seam allowance on that inner line. And if I cut some of this paper off, that's totally fine. It's that inner line. That's the real shape we're going for here. All right. You'll be just like, or I feel like I always am, so maybe you will be too, but you'll be amazed at how clean and nice this is going to look after we cut it all here. So again, using that inner line. Look, see, we had too much paper on that edge there, so trim some of that off. Oh gosh, I didn't go all the way through there. Alright, that looks good. All right, one more. Oh, Robin, this is your favorite part of foundation paper piecing. Yes, everything just magically looks perfect and clean. And I'll show you that in a sec here. So remember how blobby it was? Oh, I just love working in blobs and then it turning out with perfect seam allowances. There we go. Look how perfect. Oh, it looks like a little greeting card or something, doesn't it? Ooh, it is cute. Cute, 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 cute. All right, I think we can actually kind of see a little bit what this is going to look like in reverse, just because this is kind of the same on both sides. So we don't need any of these A template pieces anymore. I'm actually going to toss them so I don't confuse it with anything else. Because we'll be moving on to the B section, but let's just put these together quick, just because I want to kind of peek. We'll get a little sense of how this is starting here. I guess these will all kind of overlap. Get in there. A little something like that, but reversed. This is actually like this too. So when the whole thing is reversed, this will actually be on this side, and all these will be flipped, flipped like this too. But it's just fun. Sometimes you can get a little sense of what it's going to look like along the way. But I think those stars turned out so cute, and yeah, it's just looking pretty adorable there. All right, you guys, I am gonna flip you around. Or let's just take a look at the one from the book again, so we can take a second little peek there. So there we go. First little heart. All done. I think those stars turned out perfect. All right. Tomorrow we will start the bee pieces. We'll probably just go in order. So I think we'll be able to cruise through this bee piece tomorrow. And then some of these pieces I think we can do more than one in a night, especially this one. It only has 3 in. So I don't know. We might be able to get close to finishing this week yet. All right, I'm going to flip you around, you guys. Okay, hello everyone again. All right, so here is what it looks like. So small, so tiny. Oh, I love it so much. This actually would be the cutest greeting card, wouldn't it? You could do a whole pile of these at once. One of the things, if you are working on a foundation paper piecing project and all of the pieces are similar, which can happen. Sometimes it'll be a square and you'll put those 4 squares together to make an intricate pattern. So every once in a while, you will have a project where you'll have several of the same things. You could do that with this. You could print out like 6 of these heart pieces and then just do them all at once. So you could do all of the A1s and then all of the A2s, then all of the A3s. It actually speeds up the process a ton if you're doing pieces that look the same. So wouldn't that be fun to just make a pile of these up and then, you know, glue this or stitch this onto a greeting card? That would be so good. I love that idea a lot. All right, you guys. So that is it for the night. I will get this up on Penguin and Fish Movies if you wanted to see the process again. Pine tree Christmas cards. There you go. That's a good way of doing it. Yeah, we got that pine tree. This could be like little Valentine's Day or thank you cards or something. I like it. All right, you guys. I will see you tomorrow. Thanks again for joining me here tonight. Oh yeah, and again, check your emails because there was a little free little guide to stitch in there. And I'll actually have another email going out tomorrow, so check that out as well. So have a great evening. I'll see you later. Good night.